Hey guys, welcome to the world-famous Jungle Cruise, and my first day as a skipper. But just to warn you, management told me a few scenes are being refurbished, but it can't be that bad. Alrighty, so first up on the tour is an ancient Cambodian Oh, well I guess that makes sense since both have shrines. Okay, moving on. I hope you have your trunks on because... Okay, well it's a bit of a stretch, but both do feature elephants. I hope you're in the mood for zebra, as here in the... Okay, more changes than I thought. Oh come on, that's not even a Disney movie. Oh my. Well this is awkward. Seems like a step backwards, but I know. How about we take a deep dive into the history of all the previous changes to the Jungle Cruise, as quite a bit has changed since the attraction first opened in 1955, and its evolution even contains a few mysteries and surprises along the way. The history of the Jungle Cruise goes all the way back to some of the earliest plans for the original Disney park as a boat ride within True Life Adventureland. The attraction and the name of the land was inspired by Walt Disney's award-winning True Life Adventure series, which gave audiences a rare glimpse into the animal kingdom to see them in their natural habitat. Another one of the attraction's influences was the 1951 film The African Queen, especially when it came to the design of the ride vessels. The True Life Adventureland riverboat cruise would take visitors down the rivers of South America, Asia, and Africa, and were to feature the animals from each location. But initially they weren't going to be animatronics, but envisioned as live animals. However, researchers told Walt Disney that featuring live animals would probably result in them constantly hiding or sleeping, so he decided to use mechanical animals, or animatronics, instead. With this new direction, Imagineers got to work in the brand new WED facilities, creating everything from animatronic alligators, giraffes, elephants, lions, rhinos, and, African headhunters. But to be politically correct, from here on out, we'll be referring to these figures as indigenous people or indigenous tribes. They also had to test what was referred to as an underwater monorail system, as the timing of each encounter was crucial in the ride's development. Meanwhile, over at the Disneyland property, over 5 acres of land were cleared to make way for the opening day attraction. But the riverboat cruise now had the official name of the Jungle Cruise, and True Life Adventureland was shortened to simply Adventureland. And while the topic of vegetation isn't usually the most exciting, it's the reason the attraction was relocated from the east side of the Disney park to the west. You see, prior to Disney purchasing the land from the Dominguez family in 1953, it was a 160-acre orange grove, and on the west side of the property was a large section of eucalyptus trees. So the park's landscape artist Bill Evans decided to take advantage of this, as it was going to be hard enough creating a realistic jungle from the ground up, so the attraction was moved. The Jungle Cruise also involved the planting of a wide variety of plants from 6 different continents, as the goal was to make visitors truly believe they were actually in the jungle. Once the trees were planted, it was time to install the animatronics. Now it's hard to imagine today, but despite the crudity of these early mechanical figures, they were truly groundbreaking. And they had to be, because again, they were replacing the initially envisioned live animals. Once the animatronics were installed, the rivers of Adventureland were filled. Everything was coming together, but it was time to make any final adjustments as the grand opening of Disneyland was just around the corner.
Well, Walt, it seems to me we've been everywhere, haven't we?
Well, I hope so. I don't know.
Say, haven't we missed something?
Seems like it.
A whole land?
Adventureland.
Oh, that's my favorite.
Visitors who wanted to ride the Jungle Cruise first had to purchase a C ticket from the Adventureland ticket booth, which was conveniently right beside the attraction. After making their way through the ride's queue, they boarded some very eloquent steamboats, were introduced to their skipper, and departed on a journey into the mighty jungles of Asia, Africa, and South America. First up on the tour was an ancient Cambodian shrine featuring a bunch of ancient Cambodian monkeys.
Half hidden by the foliage, we get our first glimpse of a man-made structure, the ruins of an ancient Cambodian shrine, abandoned many centuries ago. But there's life in the old place yet. or a tribe of monkeys are busy trying to remodel the wreckage, or maybe they're trying to ruin the ruins. You never can tell about monkey business, you know.
Wait, back up. What the heck are those two monkeys doing? Oh phew, it's just two monkeys fighting over some bananas. But the monkeys are actually a bit of a mystery. They were some of the earliest planned animals within the attraction, and their movement was to be achieved with a string and pulley system. But what's very peculiar is that within just a year or so of opening, the monkeys literally disappeared from the attraction and never returned.
Immediately ahead of the boat, on the right-hand side, watch, we're approaching them now, those three charging alligators. Now watch your hands, please, watch the head. Oh.
After the near-fatal encounter with a group of alligators, guests passed by some baby rhinos and their overly protective mother, or father, who raised its head and prepared to charge, but of course never did. The next few encounters were much more pleasant, with two African bull elephants appearing on both sides of the riverboat.
Well, let's leave the happy couple and head for Schweitzer Falls, named in the honor of the famous Dr. Scientist.
Now it may surprise you to learn that initially the Jungle Cruise was pun and mostly joke-free, because once again, the goal was to make visitors feel as if they were actually on a safari river cruise. After the waterfall, visitors passed by a lion and lioness who were guarding the remains of a zebra they'd recently devoured.
On the left, are lions. I don't particularly like the expression on those faces. Papa Lion's attitude makes it plain that visitors won't be welcome.
On a lighter note, you then pass by two adorable vegetarian giraffes eating their leafy greens in peace. Next up is a section that's actually another bit of a mystery, as the first part of the scene either had a completely different tone.
Ladies, you watch a little more closely now. They're very docile. You can pet them on the noses.
Or this was just done for the TV special, but either case, it's always ended the same way.
Look out ahead, ladies and gentlemen! He almost got us amidships.
After witnessing the eighth wonder of the world, or in this jokeless version, just the back of a waterfall, we come to the most controversial part of the attraction.
These fellows know some wonderful tricks with a head.
Our journey through the original Jungle Cruise concludes with passing by a headhunter's trophy, which according to the skipper, was the skull of a passenger who tried to take a shortcut. There was also another massive giraffe. This one drove me crazy, as aside from the TV special, I couldn't find it within a single image or video, but I finally found it within a picture from just after the park opened, proving it was there, but for a very, very brief time. Now it should be no surprise that the attraction was a massive success, but even so, supposedly this is what instilled the belief in Walt Disney that Disneyland would never be finished, as evidently, a few months after the park opened, he overheard a mother telling her son, who was asking to ride the Jungle Cruise again, no, as they'd ridden it the last time. So in 1957, the attraction saw quite a few additions to add a bit more repeat value. Just after the Cambodian shrine, a large boa constrictor hung from a branch, narrowly avoiding visitors in the boat. The alligator scene was also expanded, as after a new group stalk and snap at visitors passing by, the original trio approach a family of water buffalo to ask them to dinner. Hey, there were no jokes in this version, so someone's gotta do it. Another change was to the lions feasting on a zebra scene, which now featured the entire happy family devouring the poor helpless animal. This was followed by his traveling buddy, who was presumably next on the menu. The group of indigenous people saw the largest expansion, as the scene now showcased an entire village, complete with a lion roasting over a fire pit. Boy, that's dark.
Dad?
Another group actually prepared to attack visitors, and remember, this was before the humor was added, so there was no way to diffuse the blatant racism. Yet. Finally, there were a pair of gorillas who hopped up and down either out of anger or excitement, for some reason, and of course the first incarnation of Disney's most famous head of sales, Trader Sam. It's also worth mentioning a rather odd update to the attraction a few years later, as the original lookout tower, which actually did function as a way to keep an eye on the boats, was decommissioned, as supposedly by this point, the plants and trees had grown so high that cast members could no longer see the vessels, and since it no longer served its purpose, the two-story boathouse was destroyed and rethemed.
Rugged. That's another word for RCA Victor New Vista TV. If you're looking for excitement, look for RCA Victor New Vista TV.
In the years 1962 and 1963, the Jungle Cruise would see the most drastic changes yet as part of a two-phase $7 million overhaul. For this update, Walt Disney brought in artist and Imagineer Marc Davis, who was given the task of reimagining the ancient Cambodian shrine. He was also chosen to design a completely new scene, the Indian elephant bathing pool, in which a herd of elephants shower and play in the water. This would replace the original alligators who hunted the family of water buffalo, at least for the time being. In fact, if you were to climb up the Swiss Family Robinson treehouse, there was a special telescope which allowed visitors to view the new additions from above.
The animal population of our jungle has grown. We started with 2 elephants, and now we have quite a family, 43 and a half to be exact.
In addition to the new ancient Cambodian shrine and Lost City section, along with the elephant bathing pool, the second part of the expansion just a year later saw 2 more brand new show scenes. First was the African Veldt, which essentially relocated and expanded the previously mentioned lions devouring a zebra scene. But this time when I say devouring a zebra, I am not exaggerating, as to say the new scene was graphic is an understatement.
And another new addition to the Jungle Land cruise is the African Veldt area. Here the animals are gathering around, watching the lions who have just made a kill.
The other scene was the Lost Safari, in which they essentially expanded the rhinoceros scene into a much larger showcase, but I think you get the point. Get it? Because the rhino is—
The laughing hyenas at last have something to laugh at.
These 3 new scenes were probably the best early example of showcasing a display so large and detailed that visitors had to ride the attraction more than once to take everything in. So basically it addressed the problem of "we wrote that last time," which Walt Disney had overheard all those years earlier. Now before we dive into even more changes to the Disneyland Jungle Cruise, we have to talk about the second incarnation at Walt Disney World's Magic Kingdom. Once again, Imagineer Marc Davis was brought into the attraction's development, and while the Disneyland version would serve as the primary source of inspiration, a number of scenes were expanded. It would also introduce a few new scenes, such as the gorillas taking over the safari camp and the infamous giant frogs. I say infamous because while the animatronic frogs were installed and present when the attraction opened, then Director of Park Operations Dick Nunis felt they looked too cartoony, so they were taken away within a few months or even weeks of the attraction's opening in 1971.
Guests aboard may encounter menace at any time, but there's no real worry because every boatload of explorers is in the hands of an experienced guide, alert to the creatures ahead and the dangers they present.
When the Jungle Cruise debuted at Disney's Florida theme park, the new and updated show scenes proved to be so popular that work began on implementing them into the Disneyland version. Curiously, there was a scene of a giant gorilla fending off an alligator that was initially planned for the Magic Kingdom, but was never installed. However, this scene was reworked into the original version, and alongside the gorilla safari camp appeared in 1976, which replaced the original rhino scene after nearly 20 years of operation. Another scene planned for the Magic Kingdom but was never installed were some alligators snapping at a parrot on a tree branch. However, this also wound up at Disneyland, but was reimagined with a hornbill instead of a parrot. Though it is interesting to mention that this scene did sort of wind up at the Magic Kingdom Rivers of America, but instead using one of the previously mentioned abandoned frogs. There were also a few other changes during this expansion, such as the addition of a tiger in the Cambodian scene, and moving the lions from the African Veldt into a lion's den, which also saw the end of the show scene's more graphic nature. Another change was to the ending of the attraction, in which the previously mentioned dancing and/or angry gorillas were replaced with a reincarnation of the water buffalo scene.
Uh-oh, I got a bad feeling about this floor show.
No, I was afraid of this. They're attacking!
Whoa!
In just the first 20 years of the Jungle Cruise's history, the attraction had seen some of the most drastic changes of any others within Disneyland, but it would also be another almost 20 years before any further significant changes were made. Although it is worth mentioning that in 1983, Tokyo Disneyland opened with their own version of the Jungle Cruise. However, aside from the boats traveling in a clockwise direction, it was basically a combination of Disneyland's version and the Magic Kingdom. Fast forward to the original park in 1993, as in preparation for the upcoming Indiana Jones adventure, the queue entrance was given a complete overhaul to tie into the aesthetics of its new neighbor. In fact, as originally envisioned, the Jungle Cruise was to be a pretty major part of the Indiana Jones attraction. However, ultimately for logistical and budgetary reasons, the only major change to the Jungle Cruise itself was slightly shortening and rerouting the river to make room for the entrance and queue. The scene that was sacrificed was the alligator hornbill encounter, but as tribute, the brave bird was relocated to the attraction's second-story queue. But since the boats would at least pass by the new temple, they were slightly redesigned to appear more weathered and Indiana Jones adventure-esque.
All right, folks, looks like we may have a little trouble up here, all right? Remember, if you get hit with a spear, throw it back, because we're not allowed to keep souvenirs.
In many regards, this was the last major change to Disneyland's Jungle Cruise, but there are a few others worth mentioning. 2001 saw the removal of the long-held tradition of skippers firing pistols at the hippos. 2005 saw an overhaul to the Safari Jeep Camp, in which a few elements of another abandoned scene from Magic Kingdom's version was given life in the original. They also relocated the baboons from the Safari Veldt to the Safari Camp, which unfortunately rendered the original section as personally overseen by Walt Disney as now simply a bunch of empty rock formations. Oh, when the gorilla once attacking an alligator was now reaching for bananas, for some reason. There was also the removal of the dead lion over the fire pit, as well as the addition of piranhas, and a new baby elephant next to a redesigned Trader Sam. And to show just how much the jungle within the Jungle Cruise had evolved since 1955, by 2010 it was declared a real jungle with a self-sustaining ecosystem.
I'll be your tour guide.
2013 saw the first incarnation of the Jingle Cruise, but the first year was pretty lackluster, as aside from the queue and boats, only a single scene featured any real decorations. However, the following year was a whole other story, as virtually every single show scene was filled to the brim with all kinds of holiday decorations. But for unknown reasons, while the tradition continued over at the Magic Kingdom, 2016 was the final year Jingle Cruise would appear at Disneyland. Now for those of you thinking, Mark, you skipped the 2005 version at Hong Kong Disneyland, I was actually saving it for last, as it helps finish our story. You see, while there are some major differences, such as traveling around Tarzan's treehouse, most of them are pretty insignificant and is almost identical to the other versions, except for the ending. For Hong Kong's version, while the indigenous tribes do play a part in the climax, the true finale deals with the god of water and the god of fire who constantly fight over their differences. This results in the boat having to maneuver around massive explosions of water from the water god, ending with the god of fire who sets the river ablaze, but thankfully you escape unharmed. Now I know this is a very controversial and touchy subject, but I'm making my prediction right now. The Disneyland and Magic Kingdom versions of the attraction will have a similar finale, with the complete removal of the indigenous tribal scenes. Heck, it might even be something like the projection effect tunnel from Tokyo's version of the Jungle Cruise. Because let's face it, if Disney was willing to completely change Pirates of the Caribbean due to its controversial scene, along with the recent announcement of the Splash Mountain Princess and the Frog retheme, it's inevitable. But just remember, even Walt Disney believed the Disney parks and their attractions would never be finished, and I think the evolution of the Jungle Cruise is a great example of that.